Hello and welcome to Studies in Shadow. I am your host, Jack Rogers, and as always, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Noah Bazoo. Say hi, buddy.
Woo! We back again, folks, week after week. We here, and I'm here, and Jack's here.
Yes.
I was really excited about this episode.
Yeah,
We're
so
both pumped.
a few days ago, I was asking Noah, hey, what are we going to talk about this week? And we were playing Xbox Live. We were playing on Xbox at the time. He's like, I have it on my phone, but I can't quite remember what it is. And I'll get back to you later. And then he goes, oh yeah, we're going to talk about the Dullahan. And I was like, what the heck is a Dullahan?
I didn't know either.
And he's like, Headless Horseman. I'm like, okay, I know what the Headless Horseman is, but I don't know what a Dullahan is. So I looked it up, and it is just the Headless Horseman, but it's
so much more.
So much more.
So much more. Kind of fun fact, this topic comes to us from fan recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
Because usually we look things up, or we have like an idea, or we, talk to each other about, X, Y, and Z of different time periods and stuff like that. But this time, someone requested this and said, hey, I'm Irish. And
no kidding.
Yeah, this person was Irish, and they were like, I'm Irish. And I asked them if they had like a story, and they were like, no, but I know that like this is the lore of it and stuff like that. Like in my family in the past, being, super Irish, there's this thing called the Dullahan, and I was like, okay, I've never heard of that. And so I was thinking, okay, if this is like a really simple thing, we might include it with like a big Irish lore kind of thing. Yeah. But then we started looking it up, and I was like, oh, like, shoot, no, this is a whole episode by itself.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it a lot. It's super interesting. I mean, the Dullahan is inspired, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod Crane, all that sort of stuff. There's been so many movies and books about it. Mm-hmm. What's the original dude's name? Something
Washington Irvine.
Washington Irvine, yeah.
I remember. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Can't remember what year it was. I don't know what year.
Yeah, and so obviously that figure's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But like Noah said, this is actually an Irish lore. Now, did you know that they classify this as a fairy?
I heard that. Did you watch a video about it?
No.
Oh, there was like this video I watched, and it was like ancient lore, just like to give me a brief introduction.
Okay, maybe we did watch the same thing. I don't know.
It was like, this is classified as a fairy. I'm like,
what?
So lame. And then it's like, actually, no, fairies are just what you call European mythology?
So I wrote that it's how they label their cryptids.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, you know cryptids like the Chupacabra, Wendigo, Skinwalker, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They call them fairies. You know what else is a fairy in Ireland?
Loch Ness Monster.
That's Scotland, dude.
I don't. They're all in the UK.
Yeah. No, the Banshee.
Oh yeah. I remember this.
Same with Leprechaun. A leprechaun is a fairy. So, what's that? What's that show? The Magicians. Have you seen that on Netflix? It's kind of raunchy. Not a kid's show. Looks like a kid's show. Definitely not.
Is it like a cartoon?
No, it's live action.
I've never heard of it.
It's like Harry Potter mixed with, I can't say Game of Thrones because that's way too intense.
Supernatural?
No. Just imagine an R-rated Harry Potter.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to
with
do that.
adult themes. No, it's a good show, but it's definitely got some weird parts. But they have, I might be remembering this wrong, like their gods, the lowercase g, they're fairies. And they don't even look like, they look like trolls. I may be remembering this incorrectly because it was like 3 years ago when I watched this.
Okay, so it's been a while. Okay.
It's been a while. But anyway, fairies, it's just another name for a cryptid or a very powerful being. And which is weird because when we think of fairies, we think of, Tinkerbell.
Disney.
They
freaking ruined it.
Demonetized.
Immediately. No, that's something I wrote a couple times in here is just, and I'm sure we'll talk about this over and over again, but just how modern day influences have like not ruined, but shaped the name and like ideas of tons of these different things.
Yeah.
Like if just going back, Bram Stoker wrote, Dracula.
Yeah.
And totally took the idea of like the Strogai or Strogi or however we said it. Strigoi. They took that, and now whenever you ask anybody about a vampire, they go back to Bram Stoker. And there's so many things like this. When you say fairy, people are going to say Tinkerbell, Disney, fairy godmothers, Rapunzel, those kinds of things. But it's like, actually, it's a lot of different things just classified as
I think
one.
Nosferatu was like the last really accurate representation of a vampire, just because of his appearance. Anyway, we're not talking about vampires. We talked about that last week. But yeah.
2 weeks ago.
The Dullahan is a fairy. And it has a very similar image to the modern day Headless Horseman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, I'm thinking of calling this episode Horseless Headman because Headless Horseman is already an alliteration and it would be too boring. So I'm just going to call it Horseless Headman.
Or we can call it the dang Dullahan. I'm just kidding.
Dang it, Dullahan.
Because there's no way to evade it, basically.
Anyway, tell me if this sounds familiar. A figure on a black horse, usually wearing like military garb or a robe or whatnot, so, or sometimes being drawn by a carriage with 6 horses, holding a whip in one hand and a human head in the other, which smiles wide from ear to ear, and it darts his eyes around. That's the Headless Horseman, but that's the Dullahan. Excuse me. Sometimes it's described as most of the time it's depicted as a man, but sometimes it's as a woman.
Yeah.
But it never specifies.
I thought that was really kind of appropriate because in a lot of the things that I read about, there was some speculation that the Dullahan was like an entity that would take
an old Celtic god.
Yeah, and
that
it would like possess a body.
Oh,
and
no, we read a different thing.
Well, like it wasn't like possessing it. It was like a person who had died. They would use it as a vessel. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of appropriate that it would be a man or a woman.
Yeah.
Because it really had no preference.
I could see that. Yeah.
Or it could just look like somebody just for the sake of it.
Yeah. So, today, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, kind of the modern day Headless Horseman, he has a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
As the head he holds. I think the only thing that's similar is the fact that jack-o'-lanterns have really wide smiles. Because you look at it in all this lore, it says that it has this really wide, sinister grin. And jack-o'-lanterns have that. So.
This might be like totally off the beaten path, but when I was reading about that smile, I thought of the new Truth or Dare movie. Where, like, whenever they get like,
I haven't even seen that, but I know what you're talking about.
Whenever they get like possessed by the Force, their smile like creeps all. Yeah, it literally just stretches across their face.
I'm gonna
and
split my
creepy.
lips if I pull my lips apart.
Yeah,
I hooked my cheeks and pulled them out to smile, and it hurt.
But I think it's funny because like like you said, like the Headless Horseman has like a jack-o'-lantern as his head, and that's what most of like the modern day things are. Yeah. But there was a movie that came out. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Are you talking about the one with Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
Sleepy Hollow.
And he had an actual head that he would carry around.
No, it was a skull. No,
Yeah.
the witch had the skull.
Yeah, but when he put it back on his head, it like grew flesh
turned into
around
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, for some reason it was Christopher Walken.
I just watched that clip today. I was like,
biggest plot twist of all time. No, but I think that's just, once again, the media in Hollywood have kind of like toned it down a little bit rather than being a head looking around.
Yeah, I don't think they could show his original whip in movies
because it was made of a human spine.
It's a human spine. I'm like, holy crap! This is like Mortal Kombat right here. I wonder if that's where they got the idea.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Who is it that does that? Is it like Scorpion?
There's a couple of characters that do things like that.
Just I know pull the head off and like the whole spine comes out.
Scorpion does that.
Yeah, I don't play Mortal Kombat, but I know that's a thing. But his whip is made out of a human freaking spine, and he uses it to blind you. He whips you in the eyes. What a jerk.
So before we get into like the depths of this kind of stuff, should we kind of go into a bit more detail of like where it comes from?
Go for it,
before we kind of bounce around into like what it is.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Obviously, it's ancient Celtic. Or Celtic? Yeah.
Celtic, yeah.
And so, we already kind of addressed that. It's just kind of the inspiration for the Headless Horseman, yada, yada, yada. I'm just trying to get all the basics out so everybody knows before we start getting to the gruesome and nitty-gritty kind of thing.
Nitty-gritty.
It's not a demon. It's just a thing.
Or it's a god, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different ways they can explain it.
I actually have the name of the god who they think it is.
Oh, do you know how to pronounce that? Because I tried to pronounce it
Cromdub.
Yeah, Cromdub.
Crom. It's CROM space DUBH. Cromdub.
Yeah, and I tried to pronounce that, and I was like, I'll go back to my Native American names with 25 letters. Anyway, it said that, like I said, the eyes are constantly moving around, so you can see across the entire countryside.
Yeah.
The flesh of the head is said to have the color and consistency.
Oh, yeah,
of moldy cheese.
Cheese, yeah, but it's really smooth.
When I read that, I was like, how do you know? Like, as somebody holding the face, like, this reminds me of that sharp cheddar I had.
And then the head turned to them, and then they got whipped in the face with a spine.
Yeah. So it's believed that he used he used the spine of a human corpse for a whip. Some people say that he tied several together to make it longer because...
I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah,
Human spines aren't that long.
I mean, unless you're like Shaq or something. But like, just tie a few of them together.
This is my Shaq whip.
Oh my gosh. The Shaquille Whipple. No, just kidding.
What?
I don't know. Its eyes are constantly moving in the countryside. I already said that. Its wagon. So it says there's different kinds of ways that it can be seen. It can ride a horse, which is like the more traditional way that we think of it, where it's like the Headless Horseman rides a black horse. Either the horse itself didn't have a head, or the horse had eyes that were flaming eyes.
Same with the hooves. It would run so fast, like stuff would catch on fire.
And then if it did drive if it was driving the wagon.
Carriage.
It said
was it a wagon or
wagon,
a carriage?
It was, I don't really know. I guess
a wagon is very much like a farm thing.
I don't remember.
Carriage is, I think it's a carriage. Yeah.
It's adorned with funeral objects. It has candles and skulls to light the way. Spokes of its wheels are made from human thigh bones.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wagons covered in worm-chewed pall.
Oh, that's
which
so
is
gross.
Dried human skin. Yep.
I love it.
And that's like, it's like, he's like stretched it over the coach.
Oh, gosh.
Still
Okay,
has wood.
Buffalo Bill, let's go.
Yeah, seriously. Lotion on the skin.
My goodness.
The ancient Irish believe that when the Dullahan stops riding,
someone would die.
Someone dies. And
so it was very different from the banshee, because when you hear the banshee, it was like a water baby cry. It was a dark omen. It was a warning. If you heard a banshee scream, be careful. If you see the Dullahan and it stops riding, you're already dead.
Or someone is dead.
Someone's about to die.
There's a lot of, like, obviously with this kind of stuff, there's going to be so many different interpretations and ideas. And so some people say, when it stops, and if you see it, it means someone in your family has died. And others say that when you see it, if it stops, just anybody dies, basically.
And sometimes, most of the things I say is I saw is if you see it, it blinds you. It doesn't like you looking at it.
It either,
it'll whip you in the eye.
Or it'll throw a bucket of blood at your face.
In your eyes.
And you'll go blind from that.
Like, what a jerk.
So, why do you
fun.
think it's headless? I couldn't find an answer to this. There's several theories, but I just want to know
there's several theories. My goodness, I'm trying to remember. I mean, some think that it's just somebody who lost their head. Mm-hmm. Or actually, no. So I looked this up and I thought I saw a way to kill it and I was like, oh, this is cool. I clicked on it. It was like a Dungeons and Dragons sheet for like a Dullahan, how to kill it. I'm like,
you're like, this won't work in real life.
That's disappointing. I thought this was like an actual way. But in that, it said that it wasn't its head that it carries around. It's somebody else's head.
Yeah.
And so the only way to stop it is to give it its real head.
I have a whole section here called How to Fight / Counter It. So
let's do that at the end.
Let's do that at the end, yeah. So one of the things that I read is that, and this is, I kind of think this just kind of like a kind of situation with like parents wanting to scare their kids to not go out at night. People just say that it's headless or the myth is headless just to scare kids. And just to make it more scary.
I mean, there's that scene in It that scares the crap out of me.
Which one?
Egg Boy in the basement. Well, he's reading the book in the library and he sees the head of the kid in the tree and he goes downstairs and he starts hearing footsteps. He turns around, you see a kid coming down the stairs, and then he comes down the rest of the way. You see he's headless. Mm-hmm. He's this weird shuffle run at him. It freaked me out.
Yeah. But so I could just imagine that's just, parents being like, don't go out at night, kids, or the Dullahan will get you. It's like, okay. A lot of early Celtic people believe, this is something that was in a bunch of different places that I looked up, and this isn't like on Wikipedia. This was like a ton of different, like, whether it's like American folklore or Irish folklore websites. People believed, especially in the ancient Celtic belief, that the head is the place where your soul resides.
Oh, yeah, no, I read that. Yeah.
When you would go to, like, for an example, if you'd go to battle or war, you would take the head of like the leader or like
because it was spiritual protection.
Yeah, and because it was like a trophy of like, look, I have their head. So it's kind of like, hey, look, this person doesn't have a head, so they have no soul, so they're gonna destroy you because there's no way to basically disrespect them.
So you know what that actually reminded me of when I read that? Did you know some of the earliest forms of exorcism involved drilling a hole into the head? Because I believe this was ancient Mesopotamia. I read this out of the book Evil Archaeology. It was like at the very beginning talking about ancient exorcisms. It was like ancient Mesopotamia whenever they thought somebody was possessed, they drill a hole in the head. Because that's where they thought your spirit resided, and then also the spirit of whatever was possessing you. And so they would do that. So they drill a hole. So that's kind of a common belief, or not a common belief, but it's not a new belief.
How does that work out for them, I wonder?
Sometimes they lived. Like, it was an actual medical procedure, yeah.
I know that lobotomy. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, essentially, sometimes it was. There was one that would kill them. It kind of effectively lobotomized them or killed them from, blood loss and
Do you
trauma.
remember the movie you watched a few weeks ago, The Apostle?
Yeah.
The guy, ties the kid down.
I don't want to think about that.
There's a scary movie on Netflix called The Apostle. I don't know why they call it The Apostle, because it doesn't have anything to do with apostles.
It doesn't mention apostles once.
Yeah, but they drilled there's a scene where a kid gets his head drilled, and you don't see it, but you see the before, the after, and the during.
Yeah, man, it's gruesome.
brutal.
I don't like it. It made me sick.
Yeah, I had to turn away.
Anyway, let's not talk about that. And yeah, there was one that would let them live after that, and then one that would kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I kind of already said this earlier, people just believed that Dullahan was simply like the god that would take a person's body as like a vessel who had already died, and it preferred people who died certain ways, or who were humiliated. And since, losing your head after you were beaten in battle was kind of like your soul being taken from you, and like you were totally disrespected after you died already, it was like, hey, I'm going to use you because, one, you don't have a soul to like fight back this body, and two, it's just really scary, and three, it's you have anger obviously in you because you've been killed. Duh. And that's what a lot of people believe because they've simply lost their head. And so you just pick some.
So I mentioned Crom Dubh earlier. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. If your Irish friend could give me the correct pronunciation, that would be fantastic. Actually, what I read, he's a god of fertility.
Yeah.
He's a pagan god. And
good old pagan
he demanded human sacrifices.
As you do.
Right? And this, at the time when they would have like this festival in, late August and early September, that's when this festival of Crom Dubh was, and they would do human sacrifice. Dullahan wasn't a thing yet, from what I can gather. And that is because there was no need for him to be there, because they were already sacrificing humans to him, giving him souls. It wasn't until Christian missionaries showed up and drove paganism out of Ireland, people stopped sacrificing.
Good old Christian missionaries.
So
gotta ruin everything.
So nobody was sacrificing humans to Crom Dubh anymore, and he got upset.
As you do.
And he's like, here's the meme. I'll describe it to you. Here's what I put.
Oh, you made a meme. Okay.
So so I just showed Noah an example of this. That's relevant.
Funny.
In the Age of Ultron after credit scene, you see Thanos. He picks up the gauntlet. He's like, "Fine, I'll do it myself." So I said, when Christianity reached Ireland and drove out paganism, it is said that this is when Crom Dubh took on the form of the Dullahan to harvest souls himself.
If you won't do it, I'll do it myself.
I'll do it myself. Oh my god. I think that's my favorite part of the notes that I took.
That's funny. I like you actually have a meme in your notes.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Like in all this professional writing, it's just a picture of Thanos. That's funny.
Oh my gosh. You can tell I had fun with this one.
Yeah, no, this is a really awesome topic.
You know what the carriage reminded me of?
Huh.
Have you seen The Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
I've
on
not even
Netflix?
heard of that, no.
Okay, it's a Netflix original. It's an anthology, right? You know that meme where the guy is on the noose and he looks over to the other guy, he's like, first time?
That's from Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, that's from Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Is it really?
Yes, that's James Franco.
Why did I think that was from Pirates of the Caribbean?
James Franco isn't in Pirates of the Caribbean. This is Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
There's usually somebody's face covering the other person's face.
But it's James Franco. Because he plays a criminal who's hanged twice. He survives the first
The more
time.
you know, I guess.
No, yeah, but there's because it's an anthology, meaning a series of short stories.
I have to watch
One
this
of them
now.
is there's people in the carriage and they're like having a conversation, and they are, it's daytime outside, and they're having this. They're just arguing with each other, and you don't really know where it's going. And as they're writing, you don't notice, but it's getting darker and darker and darker. And the two gentlemen who seem to be the most familiar with the carriage start talking about like death and stuff like that, and it gets real creepy. And they're like, "We must stop this carriage," and the people are like, "The carriage never stops. And like they look, I remember they peek their head outside, and you see like the guy on the front. He's wearing all black. He's driving the coach. That's what it is, a coach. And
That's the word.
I can't remember if you see his head or not, but I think it's like hard to see his head, and that's kind of what reminded me. And then when the carriage stops, they get out, and that's kind of like they're in the afterlife now. They're dead.
Yeah.
So they go into and you don't know if they're actually dead or not, but it really looks like it.
So
it's a super long and very depressing anthology, but it's really cool.
So are they like 20-minute videos or?
Some of them are longer.
Okay.
It's long. I think it's like 2.5 hours.
So kind of speaking of like what you were saying there, like, you know, them being in the afterlife, I have this whole thing about like its comparisons of other cultures and how there's similar things. So, people, the ancient Celtic people or the Irish people, whoever still believes in the Dullahan, one of his names or titles is the coachman to the afterlife, which isn't really like a scary name.
I think this dude
like
puts the Grim Reaper to shame, honestly.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to say. It's interesting how other cultures have so much similar lore and creatures and lore and their own beliefs. So like, you know, the Celtics, they have the Dullahan, which takes people to the afterlife in a coach. The Greeks have the boatman that takes people to the afterlife. The ferryman, the boatman, whatever you want to call it.
On the river Styx.
Yeah, the Egyptians have the guide to the afterlife, Anubis. The Japanese have the Shinigami, is what I was reading about, which kind of like is like guides.
It's like god of death.
Yeah, taken to the afterlife. Early sailors had the Flying Dutchman, like Davy Jones, who would take you to the locker, which is to the afterlife. And then, you know, today we have the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
And he's always portrayed as like this like monster with like not monster, but a cloak,
skeleton with a robe and a scythe.
a scythe. And I think it's kind of like interesting because like we make him look so scary, but all he really does is he doesn't really kill you. He just takes you back.
He just harvests your soul.
Yeah, and takes you back. So how polite is that he is there to take you back and not let you walk around and wonder where to go?
Yeah.
But that's something different. But I just thought it was so interesting how whether you totally believe in this or not, you can see that every single culture. I mean, from Ireland to Japan to Japan.
Ireland to Japan to Japan.
I can't even speak. The Egyptians and now here, like every single culture has somebody or some god or some entity that's kind of like the harbinger of death / guide to the next life.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
I think the modern day depiction should still be the Dullahan or the Headless Horseman, because quite frankly, it's a lot cooler than the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
I want to see a skeleton with a scythe duke it out with a headless dude on a horse.
Not going to be much to scythe off his head.
Not if he goes for the horse's legs. Oh, that was dark. I'm sorry.
I just think, whenever I think of the Grim Reaper, I think of Billy and Mandy, Billy and Mandy, a Jamaican Grim Reaper, and I'm like, I can't take it seriously now.
Is he Jamaican?
Yeah, man, I'm going to take you to the afterlife, my brother. Terrible Jamaican, but
Is he actually Jamaican, or does he just have a funny voice?
No, he's actually Jamaican.
Oh, really?
That's like the whole joke, is he just sounds Jamaican. Yeah. But I thought that was really interesting.
It's been years.
Yeah, no, it's been years since I've seen it. But I just think it's interesting how all these different entities and creatures serve as the same purpose. And so, you know, whatever it is, I'm sure we'll do episodes on all of these different topics, but if one of these things, specifically a Dullahan, what we're talking about right now, if he wants you, he gonna get you.
Oh yeah,
there's no way
you can't get away from him.
Nope.
You can try to hide from him because people are afraid to look at him. You know, it's not uncommon for people, especially in the August and September months, to shut their blinds at night because people actually like fear this dude.
Yeah.
But it is also said that when he rides by, all latches, locks, and drapes fly open.
It says every door, lock, no matter how strong a window, opens.
It just opens. He just Alohamoras.
It says there's a big gust of wind as he enters.
Oh, really?
That's one of the things it talks about.
Yeah, so if he doesn't run up on you and spine whip you in the face, or run up on you and throw blood at you.
Spine whip you.
Whip you. That's a new wrestling move. I'm going to spine whip you. How do you do that? Grab 'em by their ankles and just yeet. And spine comes right out. This is gruesome.
Oh my God.
Anywho, if he knows who he's coming after, he can just say your name.
And you die.
And then your soul just leaves your body.
You just die.
So he can just go outside of your house. He's like, I know you're in there. Don't make me do it. He's like, no. Come out. No. Timmy. And he just dies.
I like how Timmy went from being like 5 to being like a young girl screaming.
Hey, 5-year-old boys, their voice hasn't dropped. I'm sure they still scream like
That's
girls.
one of the things that actually, I'm glad you bring it up. That's one of the things that I was reading about, because I was just assuming it was just this Mazda rode around the countryside. It was like, I'm going to spine whip you or kill you, either way. But there are accounts of people who have survived the Dullahan encounters, because if he's not looking for you, he is not really going to kill you. But as we've
He'll
already
still
said,
spine whip you.
Yeah, as we've already said,
Don't look at me.
the price of seeing him is blindness. If you look at him and you look at him and he sees you look at him, you go blind. If you think you're clever and look away, he'll either throw blood in your eyes and blind you, or he'll spine whip your
He'll
eyes.
still spine whip you. That
And
thing's got reach, man.
Yeah, and
Think it can't turn corners?
it's just, even though you get spared, like, you're not. There's not really a way to outsmart it. So don't try to run away. And even if you think, like Jack's already said, even if you think you're the master of a
hide and
seek, you're still going to lose, because he just has to say go and then say your name. It doesn't matter how many locks you put on that
Timmy.
door. It's over.
You're done. You're basic.
So there goes the notion that you're ever safe in your home.
Yeah, I guess so.
Sorry, Irish people.
I think there's so much power behind a name is the theme I keep seeing.
Mm-hmm.
When you know a demon's real name, you have power over it.
A botchling.
Sure, a botchling. But also you see in The Conjuring, there's an example of this when Lorraine Warren, who's played by Vera Farmiga. I think so. I think that's her name. Anyway, really beautiful actress. She says the demon's name, and then she can have power over it and command it to leave. And then with the Skinwalker that we talked about last week, you say its true name, and it freaks out and then dies. Like the spirit returns and realizes everything that it's allowed to happen, and then dies. And
then when my mom calls me by my full name when she's mad at me, there's power in that name.
Power
right
in a
there.
middle name.
I know that I'm going to die, probably.
I feel like parents give us middle names just so
emphasis
just so we can be really scared.
Because they never say your full middle name.
James Isaac Neutron. I'm sorry, that's all I can think of.
Isn't it Jimmy? I'm just kidding. No, I know. But I think that's interesting how, you're totally right, though, with, the name being powerful. And that mom thing was just a joke, but it's serious, though, at the same time.
Yeah, there's a
when
lot
your
of...
mom calls you by your full name, you know something's wrong.
There's a lot of power in a name. And that I just realized that. I just keep seeing that everywhere. Sometimes it's from us to the supernatural things. Sometimes it's the supernatural things just saying our name. Mm-hmm. And then we just, dead. Gone.
Goodbye. Thanks for playing.
Okay, do you have anything else before we move on to, how to stop it?
Nope. Well, I can come back to it later.
Come back to what? Okay.
Don't worry about it. Just go.
Okay, so you can't kill it.
Nope.
If you want to know how to kill it in Dungeons and Dragons, I'll tell you. You either destroy the head and the body at the same time, and by the way, the head is not with the body, it's somewhere else and is its own thing and can attack, apparently. And then the body is carrying a random head. So you gotta be in two different places, destroy the head and the body at once, or just return the head to the body. I feel like that one's a lot easier.
It's like that the flying skull thing from last week.
Yeah. Apparently this thing can jump. No, it can fly.
Yeah,
no, can it jump or fly?
It can do both, I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember. No, this freaking head.
Yeah.
Of the Dullahan.
I can fly.
Yeah, so it's fun.
It just floats around.
And so that's how you kill it in Dungeons and Dragons. You can't kill it in real life.
Sorry, guys.
But you can slow it down.
Barely.
Kinda.
For it says it just prolongs the inevitable.
Oh.
There's nothing.
That's deep.
Yeah. Basically, I'm not going to spoil it. I want Jack to say it, but basically, if it comes after you and it wants you, there is nothing you can do to stop it. You can postpone it by an hour or a day or maybe a week, but it's going to get you.
Yeah.
It just happens.
So how the original thing with vampires is if you throw salt on the ground, the whole thing with salt is that they're super OCD and are just compelled to count every single grain of salt. Mm-hmm. That slows them down. Mm-hmm. Doesn't kill them, but it slows them down. Mm-hmm. Gold is the Dullahan salt.
even the size of a pin, from what I heard. A gold gold coin, gold pin.
There's a story. There's like a short quote that I read of this guy. He's running away, and a gold pin fell from his shirt, and it fell on the ground while the friggin' Dullahan was chasing him. And all of a sudden, he hears a shriek. He turns around, and it's gone. Like gold freaks it out. I don't know why.
All I could find about that is the fact that, I mean, in ancient times as well as now, I think more so in ancient times, because now we have a different kind of currency, and we have paper and coins, obviously, and other countries have.
I mean, we still have gold.
Yeah.
There's those infomercials all the time. Invest in gold. Now is the perfect time. Call this number now and get 2 more free bars of gold.
Even though it's a scam. But I think more for the fact that back in the day, people traded with gold. The gold was their currency. It wasn't money that had gold backing it up. It was gold itself. And to the fact that gold's very valuable, leaving the idea, this is what I read, leaving the idea behind of something, leaving the idea that if you leave something of value behind, it has power to it. And so the fact that there's a value to it, or that gold has a powerful value, kind of puts off the evil spirit because it has a positive value, I guess.
I'm sorry, I just had a really funny thought.
I can tell you started grinning.
It hit me so hard. Okay.
Okay.
So we talked about the other fairy, Leprechaun. Mm-hmm. You know, leprechauns really like gold. Okay,
Stop. You're about to make a Lucky Charms joke.
This is a crazy tangent. This is a crazy tangent. So all I can think is that the Dullahan are the ring wraiths of the leprechauns. They've been corrupted by the gold.
They don't like the gold, though.
I know, but still, like, I don't know. Maybe they had too much of it, and they got corrupted, and then they couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah, and then...
Or maybe leprechauns are terrified of Dullahan, and that's the only reason they like gold. Give me your gold! Give me your belt! Give me your gold! Why? I'm freaking scared of this Dullahan, that's why. Give it to me.
That's his one per episode.
No. Give me your gold!
His one accent per list.
Yes.
But yeah, besides that, the only thing I could find is that some people believe that gold has some kind of like intrinsic, like supernatural power to it. And
really?
Yeah, that's like some people believe that like gold.
It's kind of a sucky metal to have intrinsic power.
I mean, the reason
it's so soft.
The reason
choose something harder.
The reason
choose Damascus
steel.
The
reason that it is because they believe that and I could never find out where this really came from, this idea, but the idea that good fairies, I guess, or good lowercase g gods would bless gold because they knew it was a common thing that a lot of people had. And since there's a lot of different...
Oh, so like lucky coin?
Basically.
Like, this will circulate and give different...
Because there's a bunch of different
This will circulate, give different people luck.
There's a bunch of different creatures and like
open.
different lore that are put off by gold. And so it would just make sense in this kind of mindset that I read about, that when people... the good side of like the spiritual, of the supernatural, bless or give power to gold because they know that human beings will use it, and so that prevents the bad guys from doing stuff.
I do know that ancient Christianity kind of had an aversion to gold. That stereotype that I promise you, this isn't anti-Semitic, but that stereotype that Jewish people are rich, right?
Yeah.
They're all doctors, lawyers, very rich.
Mm-hmm.
According to my history knowledge, I may be totally wrong. I can't remember where I learned this. I'm pretty sure this was in school, actually. That Christians were all like, no, we don't want to handle gold. They didn't want to work. They don't want to run banks. They didn't feel like handling gold was moral.
Huh.
So Jewish people were like, okay, we'll do it. Huh. And so that's why on bars of gold, I've heard, on the bottom, to prove its legitimacy, you'll see a Star of David.
Okay, now I've seen that actually before.
Yeah.
I've been in.
So you know what I'm talking about. Then.
Yeah. I've been to museums and like certain other different like places where they have like full bars of gold that you can look at.
It's just because they had no moral aversion to money.
Huh.
They're like, okay, material wealth isn't a bad thing, and so they're like, we'll run the banks. It's okay.
Huh, it's interesting.
So they did, yeah.
I almost wonder why the Christian mindset was that, the early Christian mindset. But that's...
I don't know.
for a different episode, I feel like.
Who knows?
That's interesting, though.
Might be a little too secular to go into
I don't think
for the
that's
show.
I don't think that's anti-Semitic. I think that's just fact, or like what I think that's what you remember from school.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything rude or anything with that.
Yeah, that's just, I think my memory might just be failing me. Somebody please tell me if I'm wrong with anything I say. That would be greatly appreciated because I'm human. I don't know what I'm talking about most days. Oh my goodness. What else you got?
I mean, we've touched on a ton of the stuff, basically. I mean, one of the things I can just think of now is just, like, the only thing I can really, like...
Oh, yeah. What did you need to touch back on?
I mean, just the Headless Horseman, I guess. I kind of wanted to, like, talk about that a little bit. And just, like, I don't know, go from, like, the origins of it and then go to the Headless Horseman.
Okay. Like a short timeline of the Headless Horseman?
Or just talk about it, like, you know, parallels, where does it come from, kind of like the ideas behind it, that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's kind of what this episode has been.
No, I know.
You know, as a whole.
But that's just, I just think it's interesting. Like, I'm not explaining this well, but like, I guess it's just interesting that we've been talking about the Dullahan, and then I was just thinking of like how we view the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the stories behind that, and, you know, Washington Irvine's book that he wrote.
Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
I don't know. I think it's interesting that, like, the big thing about the Headless Horseman that I was reading about is the fact that in almost every story or lore about it, even in the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, like the OG, where it all started at, it was the idea that you could corrupt it. And, like, kind of like we talked about the whole movie thing, if you had his skull, you could make him do things for you. You could make him kill people for you. The Dullahan does not work that way. There is no way to bribe him. There is no way to control him.
Yeah.
So
he's literally just the harbinger of death.
Yeah.
That's all he is.
Yeah. And he's not really cruel about it or mean about it, but he just does it.
I don't know. When I think not cruel, I don't think of spine whipping someone. It's like, hey, I'm not just going to snap my fingers and make you blind. I'm going to take a human spine and slash it across your face.
Like Indiana Jones style.
And not only that, he's got to ruin perfectly good clothes with a bucket of blood, man. Come on.
I mean, you can't see your clothes now anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but you know other people can. It's like when you have a piece of something in your teeth and you can't see it, but everyone else can.
That's the worst.
You're not aware of it, but everyone else is.
Yeah.
It's a bad feeling when you find out. Or what happens to me more often is having my zipper down. Kind of same thing. Why am I talking about
Just
this?
don't wear pants.
This is so not relevant to friggin' Dullahan.
No, I just think, like, I don't know. I said this earlier, and I'll say it again. It's just interesting to me how, you know, say the name of the vampires again. Strigoi.
Strigoi.
You just say it.
From two weeks ago,
really
right?
funny.
Was that 2 weeks ago or
It was,
last
yeah,
week?
it was like 2 weeks
2 weeks
ago.
ago, right, because last week was Native Nightmares.
Yeah, I just think it's funny how, like, you know, the Strigoi, like,
Strigoi.
that goes back to Bram Stoker, and because of him, we have our own idea of what vampires are. And then when it comes to the Dullahan, we have, you know, Washington Irvine, and because of him, we don't really know about the Dullahan. I'd never heard that.
No.
It was just, when I looked it up, I was like, oh, this is just another name for the Headless Horseman. Nope, it's not. It's
the original.
It's the OG where the story started. And I just think it's interesting how, like, it's important for us to know where these things come from, because, I mean, the Headless Horseman is, like, pure evil. That's, like, the point of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's, like, pure evil. It comes out and it kills people. And there's not...
It's a boogeyman.
Yeah, and there's not really, like, a method to its madness. It just kind of happens in all, like, the...
You know, I just do things.
I'm a dog.
I'm a dog chasing cars.
But in all the movies and all the books and stories, there's different things like, oh, if you have his head, you can make him do this. Or if you do this on this certain night, you can make him do this, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, pure evil. But if you go back to the origins, of course, the Dullahan is still evil, I guess, is what you would say.
I feel like it's lawful evil.
It's, yeah, lawful evil. That's a really good way to put it. Going back to that chaotic good, lawful evil kind of mentality.
I am chaotic neutral.
Can't remember what I
Let
am.
the record show.
In case
You're chaotic good. I remember.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to look it up. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting just looking at, like, how and once again, this isn't really talking too much about the Dullahan, but it just frustrated me how whenever I ask people about vampires, or now when I ask people about the Headless Horseman or about a Dullahan, they're gonna
tell me what a Dullahan is. What? Bless you?
Yeah, they're gonna say something like that. Yeah, nobody's gonna know the original ideology, and that's
Which
what
sucks because it's way cooler.
It is way cooler. So are the
Headless Horseman.
So much cooler than the vampires.
You know, there's actually a modern day representation of Strigoi in something called The Strain. It's a TV show. There's Strigoi. They're vampires. I haven't seen it, but I looked a little bit into it.
Now I'm about to go watch that show. I don't know. I just think like that's the reason I love doing this podcast is because one, I get to learn these things, and people get to tell me to look things up that I never knew before. And also, I feel like I'm just like, hey, rest of the world and the people who listen to this, we don't know everything, so let's like go back and not just assume these guys who wrote a book that's fiction know what they're talking about. Not hating on Bram or Washington. They're good guys. Contributed a lot to...
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Rest in peace. But but it's just, I don't know. I guess the last thing that I'll say, I guess, is just the fact that there's always an origin to something. And so, especially with like the Dullahan here, like I assume that most, if not all of our listeners would not have known that's where the Headless Horseman got its origin.
Didn't know what it was until 2 days ago.
Exactly. And so, to that, look deeper into things. Don't just sit there and assume that that's the truth. Like, go deeper.
Don't rely on Disney for your sources. They water everything down. Go read Brothers Grimm.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to do an episode on zombies. And, I mean, I don't know if you know, but, like, the origin of zombies is totally, totally different to what it is now. And it's, like, a lot older than just
The T virus or the Z virus.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Walkers.
Yeah. Get 'em, Rick.
Oh, my gosh.
But, yeah, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Don't just assume you know everything. Go look it up.
Well put. All right. I don't have anything else to talk about, but we talked about something really important at the beginning of this that I want to touch back on. It's the fact that a listener gave us a topic to talk about. Guys, if you don't give us something to talk about, we're just going to come up with something on our own, and it's not as fun. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
It'll make things a lot more fun for you and for us, because neither Noah nor I had any idea what this was. We wouldn't have thought to go look for it, and therefore, we've both learned a lot more than if we just said, let's talk about something we both know a little bit about, and then just meet up.
Well, because, the thing is we have a list of things that we want to talk about, and it's a fairly long list, and we kind of have an idea of what we're going to talk about, a few weeks in advance, just kind of like, let's do this topic. But if you approach us with an idea, we'll drop everything we've had prepared and go for it.
Or if you have a story, like a personal story about something, we will make that episode about that story. Or we can at least discuss it if it's something we've already talked about. Like if you've got a story about, Native American cryptids or Strigoi, vampires, that kind of stuff. What else have we talked about? Witch trials.
Poltergeist.
Yeah,
monsters,
poltergeist, that kind of
possession.
Stuff. Just send us a message on our Facebook, and we will always see it, or you can contact us at studiesinShadow@gmail.com. We will see it, and we will reply, because we want to hear from you. That would be really awesome.
Yeah, so do that, because I know, speaking from my personal experience, and Jack as well, we were both a lot more excited about this episode because we had no idea what it was.
Oh, yeah. So it was all new.
Help us be excited.
I didn't feel like it was anything old.
Yeah, no. Help us excite our listeners. Help us make everything more exciting by contributing things that we don't know. Because, I don't know, learning new things is more fun than just rehashing the things that we already know about.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. And also, soon to be on Pandora. Crossing fingers. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Username Studies in Shadow. For all inquiries, requests, or submissions for stories, you can reach us at studiesinShadow@gmail.com. That's all lowercase one word. We are coming out with a website very soon. We should have the details coming to you within the next week or so. We're just building the website. The music for this podcast has been composed and produced by Jack Rogers and Matthew Gonzalez. This has been Studies in Shadow. Thank you for listening, and be safe.